Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. Hope you guys are having a great week, a great day. I am Dr. Jeremy with the Wellness Way in Fond du Lac, and today's quick tip is going to be headaches, right? What's putting the ache in your headache? So, one of the most common complaints, symptoms, things that we have coming into the office almost every day are people coming in complaining of headaches. Either they've been dealing with headaches, they've been diagnosed with chronic headaches, chronic migraines, tension headaches, occipital headaches, maybe hormonal headaches, right? There's all these different types of headaches out there. But the key to actually, kind of resolving and getting rid of these headaches really, it doesn't really matter what kind of headache you have. It kind of all really boils down to one thing. And that is you have to get at and figure out what's that underlying cause of your headache. What are some of those triggers? And that's really what we're going to talk about today is what are some of those triggers and things that can cause headaches. Because again, when you look at the statistics, 26 million Americans suffering from headaches. I know daily, one of the main reasons people go to their doctor, 80% of those people are females. And so, we look at what's our current medical approach, mainstream medicine's approach to dealing with headaches is really one thing is drugs, right? And are there medications and things you can take to help with your headaches? Yes, of course there are. But again, what happens 4, 6, 8 hours later, 2, 3 days later when those medications wear off, your headaches are coming right back, right? They're flaring back up again. And so do those medications really solve the problem, right? Do they solve the question of what's causing the headaches, what's triggering them? No, right? They're just they're a band-aid, they're a cover-up. And so when we talk about headaches and triggers, one of the first things we want to look at and talk about is going to be traumas and or subluxation. And so think of traumas, or what we call really physical stressors, really can come from many different things, right? They can come from actual accidents, injuries, slips, falls. They can come from also things like posture, right? Poor posture, the way you sit, the way you stand, the way you sleep, how you walk. If you have a job, you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, that repetitive overuse, all those things are traumas or physical stresses, and they all result in one thing, and that's scar tissue. And when we have scar tissue built in a joint, now we get things like subluxation. And so subluxation is basically a joint that's now lost its proper motion and mobility and or alignment because of scar tissue. And so when you look at headaches, what could be one of the main causes or generators of them is when you look at this upper cervical area, the brainstem actually extends down those first 2, 3, sometimes 4 vertebrae. And also you can see in through here we have these nerves. Well, again, if those joints up there are stiff and stuck, that brainstem can become inflamed and irritated. Those nerves can become inflamed and irritated, and that can actually be the cause or the generator of your headache. And so I tell people one of the best places to start when you're dealing with headaches is go to a chiropractor, right? Get that neck, that spine checked and see, do you have good, healthy, mobile joints, or do you have some stiff, stuck joints in that neck? Start getting some adjustments, doing some exercises, and see, do your headaches and your symptoms start to resolve? And so the key is, though, let's say you go to the chiropractor, you get adjusted, and your things don't improve. Does that mean that chiropractic care failed you? No, right? Chiropractic care always does what it's supposed to do, and that's restore health and mobility into the joints. If you go to the chiropractor and you get those things done and your headaches don't clear up and they still persist, that means that there's something else causing those headaches. And that's where we go at number 2. What are other things that can cause headaches? And this one's toxins. And we got a couple different things we look at. Toxins, but in general, toxins come from the foods you eat, the air you breathe, the water you drink, and any products and cosmetics you use, and or any underlying infection that you might have. And so, we look at headaches, we know based on the literature and the studies that they've done that there are certain foods that you eat that actually can trigger a headache. And so one of those things is dairy, right? And so now me again, I'm from Wisconsin, so this is always a fun subject to talk about with people, but dairy can be one of those triggers. And again, dairy is, in general, it's just not something we really need to be consuming really at all for any really health benefit. But dairy is very pro-inflammatory. It irritates the digestive tract. It's very mucousy producing. It feeds a lot of those not so good bugs that we have in us and on us. And so dairy can be one of those triggers or causes of headaches. Number 2, gluten. So most people know about gluten, have heard about gluten. Gluten, just a little background, which could be its own quick tip itself. Gluten is basically it's a protein. It's a protein that's found in wheat, and so really most grains have a form of gluten. It just depends on what grain you're looking at. They might call gluten a different term, but the number one source of gluten that we look at is wheat. And so I always tell people is eating gluten is like eating a bunch of firecrackers. When you eat gluten and consume wheat, which contains gluten, that goes into the digestive tract. It's like a bunch of little bombs going off in there, and it's just blowing up the digestive tract, causing tons of inflammation and damage and destruction inside that digestive tract. And here's the thing is, our digestive tract acts like as a barrier. It keeps certain things in and out of our body. Well, our brain also has a barrier called the blood-brain barrier. And when our digestive tract becomes massively inflamed and irritated and damaged, guess what happens to the blood-brain barrier? Also becomes very irritated and inflamed as well. So gluten can be, again, one of those causes or contributors to your headache, as well as many, many, many other health conditions. Number 3, toxins. Again, the processed foods, right? And we talk about this so much, but again, the additives, the artificial sweeteners, the rancid oils, all these things, again, found in processed foods. Certain additives and sweeteners, things like MSG, right, has been shown they're neurotoxic. Aspartame, neurotoxic. High fructose corn syrup, neurotoxic. All of those things are neurotoxins, which means they actually destroy the nervous system. And what's the number one nervous system organ? Right, the brain. And so, there's been tons of studies that show aspartame and MSG, those two especially cause lots of inflammation in that blood-brain barrier and actually inflame the brain as well. Then we talk about the rancid oils, right? Things like your canola oil, your vegetable oil, your soybean oil, your corn oils. All of those things too are also very pro-inflammatory, very damaging to the body, and can be a trigger or cause, again, of some of those headaches. And so we look at foods. You got to look at these three, these groups here. And then last but not least, you cannot forget about food allergies, right? This is something, again, if you've ever listened to any Wellness Way talks and things like that, Dr. Patrick Flynn, all the other docs, we talk about so often food allergies. And again, I always kind of joke around is when we do our food allergies, we're looking and testing whole foods, right? Our food allergy doesn't test to see, are you allergic to Doritos and Twinkies and McDonald's cheeseburgers, right? Because again, we cannot be consuming those things on a regular basis. We're looking at things like broccoli, right? One of the best foods on the planet. Things like avocados, another great superfood. But here's the key: if you're allergic to those foods, it doesn't matter if they're organic or not. If you consume them, they will cause inflammation, right? It's like putting fuel on the fire. And that inflammation doesn't just stay in the digestive tract, it goes systemically throughout the whole body. So knowing your food allergies, what whole foods you can and cannot eat, can also be very, very beneficial when you're dealing with headaches. And then our third, and certainly not least, is thoughts, right? Those emotional stressors. Just one thing that can trigger a headache itself is if you're constantly stressed out. And again, we call the thoughts or emotional stressors in our office, things like, husband, wife, relationships, parents, grandparents, kids, job, finances, deadlines, money, all these different things. If you're constantly stressing out about those things, that in itself can be a trigger for headaches and migraines and things like that. But here's the other key too. Females, one of the biggest things that's going to affect your health is going to be these emotional stressors, because you're chronically stressed, and that chronic stress has a massive impact on your hormones and your hormone levels. And so a lot of times with females, if we hear things like, well, I never really got, all of a sudden I only get my headaches when I have my cycle, or I get them at the end of my cycle, or I didn't have headaches until I hit puberty, or now I have headaches as I'm going into menopause, that's an indication that your hormones are out of balance. And again, you need to figure out or find out what's causing that hormonal imbalance. And again, what's going to cause those hormones to become out of balance? Traumas, toxins, and thoughts, and the things that we talked about. And so, kind of wrapping it up here, final thoughts, right? Our final thoughts. When you look at headaches and migraines, we talk about those things, like we said, that makes them a little tough sometimes to deal with is the fact that it's usually not one thing. Right? Like most things in life, it's not usually one thing that's going to cause your headaches or migraines or whatever kind of headaches you have. It's usually going to be a combination of Maybe you have misalignment and lack of motion and mobility in that neck. You're probably consuming certain things or coming in contact with certain things in your environment, certain toxins that are triggering those migraines, and you probably have some emotional stressors that are going on, and that's why here at the Wellness Way, we take that three-pronged approach of dealing with traumas and toxins and thoughts, and it allows us to get the results that we do with patients because we're addressing all three areas of stressors. And so, like I said, if you're dealing with headaches, migraines, tension headaches, it doesn't matter what they are. Can you take certain medications and things that will cover those headaches up? Yes, you can. But like I said, what happens when those drugs wear off? What happens 2, 3, 4 days later after you take them, and all of a sudden you get another headache or another migraine? Did those drugs really solve the problem of what was causing those headaches? No, right? They're a band-aid. And so, one of the best places to start is honestly, finding a chiropractor in your area, getting that cervical spine checked out. And here's the thing, if you have a Wellness Way office near you, even better, right? Going in there, you can start getting all three of these traumas, toxins, and thoughts evaluated and see, what are the certain things that may be triggering or feeding into your headaches and starting to get those things addressed. So, as always, it was great to see you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day, a great weekend. Always love doing these videos, and hopefully in the future, I'm sure we'll be seeing you guys in a few weeks. So take care and love you.